Senior analyst Vectora's third hand trembled as she initiated the holographic playback, her primary hearts beating in an irregular rhythm. The footage from the Battle of Alpha Centauri filled her private chambers with ghostly light, casting strange shadows on the crystalline walls. She had reviewed this recording exactly 47 times, and each viewing left her more disturbed than the last. Playtime stamp 234712. She commanded, her vocal sacs vibrating with tension. The scene materialized. Earth defense vessel Defiant hung suspended against the backdrop of Alpha Centauri's twin stars, looking absurdly small compared to the approaching Drachnid warships. Its hull still bore the industrial markings of its former life as a deep space mining vessel, hastily retrofitted with military-grade plating and weapon systems. Captain Emily Morrison's voice crackled through the recording, impossibly calm despite the circumstances. All hands, battle stations, remember New Boston. The reference to the Drachnid's first strike against human colonies sent a chill through Vectora's spine ridges. The humans had lost 10,000 civilians that day. Now, barely 3 months later, they were about to teach the galaxy a lesson in vengeance. The Drachnid fleet approached in perfect formation, 16 warships arranged in the traditional spear configuration that had conquered 37 civilizations. High Commander Zexthor's voice boomed through the command channel. Primitive vessels, this is your final warning. Submit to Imperial authority, or face immediate destruction. The response came not in words, but in action. The Defiant and its 5 sister ships broke formation in ways that defied standard void combat logic. They accelerated directly toward the Drachnid fleet, but each ship spun on multiple axes, presenting constantly changing target profiles while maintaining their course. Impossible, Vectora whispered, even though she'd seen it dozens of times. The human ships were executing maneuvers that should have torn them apart, or at least incapacitated their crews, through G-force alone. Yet they maintained perfect coordination, their seemingly chaotic movements actually forming a complex dance of death. The Drachnid fleet opened fire, their energy weapons cutting brilliant swaths through space, but the humans had already anticipated the firing solutions. The Defiant's sister ships scattered in practiced precision, drawing fire while Captain Morrison's vessel slipped through the gaps in the enemy formation. Now, Morrison's command cut through the chaos. Show them what we learned. The Defiant's hull split open like a blooming flower of steel and fury. Hidden compartments revealed rows of what Vectora now knew were modified mining charges, industrial equipment repurposed into weaponry with devastating creativity. The charges launched in a spherical pattern, each one trailing nearly invisible monofilament wires. The Drachnid ships, their shields calibrated for energy weapons and traditional projectiles, never detected the thin wires until they had woven a deadly web through their formation. When the charges detonated, the energy pulses traveled along the wire network, creating a cascade of explosions that bypassed shields entirely and ripped through hull plating, designed to withstand direct hits from capital ships. 3 Drachnid warships died in the first second. 4 more followed in the next. The remaining vessels attempted to retreat, but the other human ships had already moved to cut off their escape vectors. The entire battle lasted less than 6 minutes. This is Captain Morrison to Drachnid Command. The transmission still sends shivers through Vectora's nerve clusters. Your ships are disabled. Your crews are at our mercy. And we're just getting started. The next time you consider attacking human civilians, remember this moment. Remember how 9 mining ships took down your elite fleet. Remember that we can turn anything into a weapon, any defeat into a strategy, any loss into motivation. This is humanity's official response to your demand for submission. Vectora paused the playback, her analysis appendages twitching as she added another note to her report. The humans had done the impossible that day. Not just defeating a superior force, but completely revolutionizing combat doctrine in the process. They had turned their technological disadvantages into advantages, used their enemies' assumptions against them, and demonstrated a capacity for tactical innovation that still haunted military planners. But what truly terrified Vectora was what came after. Within a month, every human vessel had adopted and improved upon these tactics. Within 3 months, they had developed countermeasures for their own strategies, then countermeasures for those countermeasures. Their capacity for military evolution was unprecedented in galactic history. End playback. Vectora whispered. She had so much more to document, and each revelation about human combat capability was more frightening than the last. The day everything changed was just the beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. Vectora adjusted her sensory membranes as she examined the medical scans from the siege of New Houston. The data couldn't be correct. No species could survive such trauma, let alone continue fighting. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The footage showed Lieutenant James Ghost Walker's unit defending the city's eastern sector. The Kryvax invasion force had deployed their signature nerve toxins, confident that the harmful mixture of chemicals and radiation would clear the area. Their sensors confirmed 0 life signs in the target zone. By all logical measures, everything in that sector should have been dead. The Kryvax ground forces advanced with confidence, their commander following standard post-toxin deployment protocols. That's when everything went wrong. Contact front. The first Kryvax transmission crackled with surprise. Impossible. They're still moving. The security feeds showed what the Kryvax saw. Human figures emerging from the chemical fog, their environmental suits shredded, skin blistered from radiation exposure, but still advancing with weapons raised. Lieutenant Walker led them, blood seeping through his damaged armor, each breath visibly painful from his punctured lung. Vectora's analytical appendages trembled as she documented the next sequence. Walker's vital signs during the engagement painted an impossible picture. 3 broken ribs, severe internal bleeding, radiation poisoning that should have been immediately fatal, and toxic chemical exposure that would have paralyzed any other known species. Yet the footage showed him not just moving, but executing complex combat maneuvers. The Kryvax forces, trained to expect only dead bodies, found themselves facing what they could only describe as revenants, warriors who simply refused to die. "Sir," one of Walker's soldiers called out, his own armor showing critical damage. "Medical sensors are offline. Life support failing." Walker's response, captured by his suit's damaged recorder, would later become legendary. "Then we'll do this without them. Sound off if you can still hold a weapon." Every member of his 12-person unit responded, despite injuries that should have rendered them unconscious or dead. Their counterattack violated every known principle of combat physiology. Vectora reviewed the medical analysis again. The humans weren't just fighting through pain. They were actively compensating for their injuries. When damaged muscles failed, they instantly adapted to use different muscle groups. When bleeding threatened to drop their blood pressure, their bodies automatically constricted blood vessels to maintain consciousness. Even their adrenal responses seemed designed to keep them fighting far beyond their normal limits. The Kryvax never stood a chance. Their entire combat doctrine was based on the assumption that sufficient damage would incapacitate any enemy. They had no protocols for engaging opponents who simply ignored what should have been lethal injuries. Walker's unit hit them from multiple angles, using their supposedly dead status to full advantage. The Kryvax troops, psychologically shattered by facing what appeared to be unkillable enemies, broke formation and retreated in panic. The most chilling part, Vectora noted, came during the post-battle medical examination. When asked about fighting through injuries that should have been instantly fatal, Walker simply shrugged and said, "Had a job to finish. Besides, Doc says most of this'll heal up in a few weeks." Vectora added her final analysis notes with trembling appendages. Human physiological responses appear specifically evolved for combat survival. Their bodies demonstrate redundant systems, remarkable damage compensation, and pain tolerance that suggests their entire species developed under conditions of constant warfare. She included the subsequent research data. Humans could function with 1 lung, fight with broken limbs, survive massive blood loss, and maintain combat effectiveness even with severe trauma. Their bodies could seal wounds, clot blood with remarkable efficiency, and even route neural signals around damaged areas to maintain muscle control. But most terrifying was their psychological resilience. Where other species became combat ineffective after serious injury, humans often displayed increased aggression and determination. It was as if pain itself fueled their resolve. "This explains so much," Vectora whispered as she sealed the report section. "The humans weren't just capable warriors. They were literally built for warfare, their bodies and minds forged by millions of years of evolution to become the perfect survival machines. And now these walking combat engines had access to advanced medical technology, power armor, and genetic engineering." Vectora shuddered to think what they might become next. Vectora's research pod hummed quietly as she reviewed the Mars Liberation Campaign footage. Her species prided themselves on logical analysis, but what she witnessed in these recordings defied conventional military logic. Colonel Amanda Shadow Reynolds and her small team of 12 operators had managed to force the surrender of an entire hegemony legion, not through superior firepower or technology, but through pure, calculated terror. The first indication of Reynolds' unconventional approach came during the initial phase of the operation. Instead of a direct assault on the hegemony's positions, her team spent 3 days studying their prey. They observed patterns, monitored communications, and learned the psychological weaknesses of their opponents. The hegemony forces, accustomed to straightforward combat, never detected them. "Begin Phase 1. Reynolds' voice was eerily calm in the recovered audio. "Remember your animal assignments. Let's show them Earth's greatest predators." What followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Each member of Reynolds' team adopted the hunting patterns of Earth's apex predators. 2 operators used wolf pack tactics, isolating and eliminating perimeter guards while broadcasting recordings of howling wolves through the Martian night. Another pair employed big cat hunting strategies, striking from elevated positions with terrifying precision. The hegemony commander's reports grew increasingly frantic. Day 4. Another patrol missing. Found only their weapons, arranged in a perfect circle. Day 5. Security footage shows shadows moving against the wind. Troops refusing night shifts. Day 6. The sounds. They're in the walls, in the ventilation systems, always hunting. Reynolds' team had studied Earth's predator species extensively. They replicated the hunting patterns of crocodiles, waiting motionless for hours before striking with explosive violence. They mimicked spider tactics, leaving elaborate traps and web-like patterns of monofilament wire that claimed victims silently in the darkness. Each demonstration was carefully choreographed to maximize psychological impact. "The beauty of fear," Reynolds wrote in her classified field notes, "is that it multiplies force. 12 operators become hundreds in the enemy's mind. Every shadow holds death. Every sound signals doom." Vectora noted how the team exploited the hegemony's rigid military doctrine. The aliens' strict adherence to protocols became a weakness. When communications were cut between outposts, they followed standard procedures, becoming predictable targets. When they deployed search parties, they moved in textbook formations, making them easy to isolate and eliminate. The psychological breakdown was methodical. Reynolds' team targeted officer quarters with subsonic frequencies that induced panic and sleep deprivation. They used captured communication systems to broadcast the screams of previous victims. They left messages written in hegemony blood. "You're not trapped here with us. We're trapped here with them." By day 10, the hegemony forces were shooting at shadows. Their command structure collapsed as officers reported creatures moving at impossible speeds, soldiers vanishing into thin air, and hunting calls that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Legion's combat effectiveness dropped to less than 20%. The final blow came when Reynolds' team infiltrated the main command center. They didn't attack. They simply revealed themselves, standing in formation behind the hegemony commander during a status briefing. The psychological impact of 12 humans appearing silently in a supposedly secure room broke the last remnants of alien morale. "We surrender," the hegemony commander's voice shook in the recording. "Please, just make the hunting stop." Vectora added her analysis with trembling appendages. Human psychological warfare techniques demonstrate an intimate understanding of primal fear. They have weaponized terror itself, using their planet's evolutionary history to create warfare doctrines that exploit the deepest instincts of their opponents. The most disturbing aspect, she noted, was how the humans had turned their own evolutionary past into a weapon. Their understanding of predator-prey relationships, honed over millions of years, had evolved into sophisticated combat doctrine. They didn't just fight, they hunted. Reynolds' after-action report contained a quote that Vectora included in her final analysis. "Every species in the galaxy evolved either as predator or prey. Humanity had the unique advantage of being both. We learned to hunt like wolves and think like deer. That's what makes us so dangerous. We understand both sides of the equation." The footage ended with Reynolds' team disappearing into the Martian darkness, leaving behind a legion of broken warriors and a new chapter in the galaxy's understanding of human combat capabilities. Vectora's sensory appendages twitched nervously as she examined the recovered footage from Earth's Xenotech Integration Division. Dr. Michael Anderson's laboratory should have been impossible. Human scientists casually disassembling advanced alien technology that had taken other species centuries to develop. Yet the evidence was undeniable. "Pass me that quantum spanner." Anderson's voice came through clearly in the recording. He was hunched over a captured Drachnid shield generator, his workspace cluttered with Earth tools that had no business interfacing with advanced alien tech. "And someone get me a microwave from the break room." Vectora's confusion deepened as she watched the humans systematically tear down the shield generator. Anderson's team didn't just study the technology. They questioned its fundamental assumptions. Where Drachnid engineers had followed centuries of established design principles, the humans asked, why? And why not? With devastating effectiveness. "Look at this," Anderson pointed to the generator's power matrix. "They're routing everything through crystalline pathways because that's how it's always been done. But what if?" He reached for the dismantled microwave, extracting its magnetron with practiced ease. "What if we used Earth's primitive microwave technology to excite the particles instead?" His colleagues didn't dismiss the seemingly absurd idea. Instead, they began calculating possibilities, suggesting modifications, building on each other's innovations. Vectora watched in horror as they rebuilt the shield generator using a hybrid of advanced alien tech and what they called garage engineering. "Power test in 3, 2, 1. Anderson initiated the sequence. The shield generator hummed to life, its energy readings far exceeding original specifications. "Would you look at that? 400% increase in output, 30% reduction in power consumption, and we built it from parts you can find in any kitchen." Vectora's report noted the implications with growing alarm. Humans don't view advanced technology with the proper reverence. They treat million-year-old engineering principles as suggestions. They see technology not as something to be mastered, but as something to be improved upon, often in ways that violate established physical laws. The footage continued, showing Anderson's team tackling increasingly complex alien systems. They transformed hegemony medical scanners into weapon detection systems, converted Drachnid navigation computers into battlefield prediction engines, and repurposed Kryvax communication arrays into long-range disruption fields. The Anderson Doctrine, as it became known, revolutionized human military technology. Its core principle was simple yet terrifying. Every technology can be improved. Every system can be hijacked. Every weapon can be turned against its makers. Here's the really interesting part, Anderson explained to a gathering of military officials. Alien tech is actually harder to defend because it's so advanced. They've optimized everything, made it all so efficient that there's no room for adaptation. But humans, we build redundancies. We create workarounds. We leave room for duct tape and wire. The demonstration that followed haunted Vectora's nightmares. Anderson showcased a modified Drachnid plasma cannon, its elegant housing now bristling with crude Earth additions. We took their fancy energy weapon, he explained, and basically turned it into a shotgun. Sure, it's less elegant, but it's twice as deadly and 3 times harder to break. What terrified Vectora most was the speed of human adaptation. While other species took generations to fully understand captured technology, humans mastered and modified it within months or even weeks. They approached advanced technology with a combination of scientific rigor and barbaric simplicity that produced nightmare weapons. You see, Anderson continued in the footage, most species develop technology in a straight line. They build on what came before, refining and perfecting. Humans, we develop technology like we evolved, in all directions at once, keeping what works, discarding what doesn't, and combining things in ways nature never intended. Vectora concluded her report with a chilling observation. Human technological development cannot be predicted or contained. They don't follow established paths of progress. They take conceptual leaps that defy logic, combine incompatible systems, and routinely achieve results that should be impossible. Most disturbing is their ability to weaponize seemingly harmless technology. In human hands, everything is a potential weapon. The final footage showed Anderson's team starting work on a new project, combining hegemony phase technology with what appeared to be a child's toy. Vectora decided some details were too terrifying to include in her report. Some nightmares were better left undocumented. Vectora replayed the Battle of Proxima Centauri for the 7th time, her analytical mind struggling to comprehend the chaos unfolding before her. Major Thomas, Alpha Blackwood's forces seemed to operate without any discernible command structure, yet their movements displayed an impossible level of coordination. The initial stages of the battle had gone according to standard military doctrine. The hegemony's jamming fields had cut off all human communication channels, isolating their combat units. By all tactical analysis, the scattered human forces should have been easy prey for the coordinated hegemony assault. "Signal lost, sir," came the last transmission from Blackwood's command center. Switching to Protocol Wolf. What followed defied every principle of military organization Vectora had studied. Instead of falling into disarray, the human units seamlessly transformed their formation. They broke into smaller groups of 5 to 7 soldiers, each operating with apparent autonomy, yet maintaining an intricate dance of mutual support. They're not just fighting, Vectora noted in her analysis, they're hunting. The footage showed how each human squadron adopted different roles that shifted fluidly as the battle evolved. Some groups acted as scouts, probing hegemony defenses. Others became pursuit units, harrying enemy formations. Still others set ambushes with devastating effectiveness. Recovered hegemony combat logs revealed the growing panic. They're everywhere and nowhere. Every time we adapt, they change patterns. It's like fighting a single organism that can split and reform at will. Vectora's research revealed the truth behind Protocol Wolf. Blackwood had based his entire command structure on Earth wolf pack hunting behaviors. Each unit was trained to operate independently while maintaining awareness of the larger pack's objectives. They communicated through subtle signals, coordinated without direct orders, and adapted instantly to changing battlefield conditions. The beauty of pack tactics, Blackwood explained in a recovered briefing, is that you can't decapitate the command structure. Every soldier knows the mission objectives. Every unit can take initiative. Cut us off from command, and we become more dangerous, not less. The footage showed how human units would spontaneously coordinate complex maneuvers without any apparent communication. One squad would appear to draw enemy fire, while another used the distraction to flank. A third would somehow materialize exactly where they were needed most, as if guided by some collective hunting instinct. Most disturbing to Vectora was how the human formations would spontaneously reorganize based on casualties. When a squad lost members, nearby units would instantly adjust, splitting and combining to maintain optimal hunting group sizes. It was organic, fluid, and terrifyingly efficient. Look at this pattern. Vectora highlighted a sequence for her superiors. The humans aren't following a command chain. They're acting like a coordinated predator species. Each unit knows its role in the hunt without being told. They've weaponized their evolutionary history. The turning point came when the hegemony forces, frustrated by their inability to engage the humans directly, concentrated their forces for a decisive push. It was exactly what Blackwood's pack tactics were designed to exploit. Spring the trap was his only order, transmitted through visual signals rather than compromised communication channels. The scattered human units suddenly converged from all directions, transforming from seemingly random harassment groups into a coordinated killing machine. The hegemony forces found themselves surrounded, their superior numbers meaningless against an enemy that struck from all sides simultaneously. You wanted wolves at your door. Blackwood's message to the surrendering hegemony commander crackled with grim satisfaction. Congratulations, you got them. Vectora's final analysis painted a disturbing picture. Human military units demonstrate an unprecedented ability to operate without rigid command structures. Their pack tactics combine individual initiative with collective purpose in ways that make them extremely difficult to counter. Most concerning is how they become more effective, not less, when standard military disruption techniques are employed. She added a personal note. They don't just fight like wolves. They think like them, move like them, adapt like them. We're not facing an army. We're facing packs of apex predators who carry advanced weapons and possess human intelligence. The galaxy has never seen anything like them. The footage ended with Blackwood's units melting away into the battlefield, breaking down into smaller hunting groups to begin the cycle anew. Vectora shuddered as she sealed the report. The humans hadn't just studied Earth's predators. They had become them. Vectora's appendages trembled as she reviewed the classified Phoenix Protocol documents. Commander Jessica Phoenix Martinez's methodology wasn't just a tactical innovation. It was a fundamental reimagining of how military forces could learn from defeat. The footage from the Battle of New Singapore played on her viewing screen, showing the devastating loss that had sparked this revolution. Full tactical analysis. Martinez's voice was steady despite the destruction around her. She stood in the command center's ruins, recording every detail of their defeat. I want every failure cataloged, every mistake documented, every weakness exposed. We're going to learn from this, and we're going to make them regret teaching us these lessons. The initial defeat had been brutal. The swarm's psychic attacks had shattered human defensive formations, their hive mind coordination overwhelming traditional command structures. By all normal military doctrine, such a devastating loss should have demoralized the human forces. Instead, it ignited something far more dangerous. Look at how they synchronized their attacks. Martins pointed to the battle footage, addressing a room full of officers. Our individual unit responses made us vulnerable to their collective consciousness. So let's turn that against them. Show me every moment we failed. Show me every death. Every loss becomes a lesson. Vectora watched in growing unease as Martinez's team dissected their defeat with cold precision. They didn't just study their tactical errors. They obsessed over them, reimagining every scenario, testing new responses in endless simulations. The Phoenix Protocol took shape, a systematic method for transforming military failures into future victories. Standard military doctrine says we should focus on our successes, Martinez explained to the Joint Chiefs. But our failures teach us more. Every time we fall, we learn 100 ways to rise again. Every defeat shows us our enemy's capabilities. They're not just beating us, they're teaching us how to beat them. The results were undeniable. In the Second Battle of New Singapore, just 3 months later, human forces implemented everything they'd learned. The swarm's psychic attacks met prepared minds. Their hive mind coordination faced an enemy that had adapted to their patterns. What had been a crushing defeat became a blueprint for victory. They're using our own tactics against us. The recovered swarm communications revealed their confusion. How did they adapt so quickly? These aren't the same forces we fought before. Vectora's analysis noted the pattern with growing alarm. Human military forces don't just learn from defeat, they evolve through it. Each failure catalyzes rapid adaptation. Their response to loss isn't demoralization, but acceleration of their combat evolution. The footage showed how Martinez's forces had even incorporated elements of swarm tactics into their own strategy. They'd developed a hybrid doctrine that combined human creativity with the enemy's most effective techniques. The Phoenix Protocol didn't just help them overcome defeats, it turned those defeats into transformative opportunities. Every time you knock us down. Martinez's briefing to her troops became famous throughout the fleet. We don't just get back up. We evolve. We adapt. We become something new. Something stronger. Your greatest victory becomes your worst nightmare. Because now we know exactly how you fight. And we've already designed a counter for next time. Vectora included examples that terrified her superiors. After losing to hegemony stealth technology, humans developed detection systems that surpassed the original designs. When Drachnid energy weapons decimated their forces, they returned with shields specifically calibrated to those frequencies. Following defeats by alien psychers, they engineered both mental defenses and psychological warfare techniques. Most concerning, Vectora wrote, is the speed of their adaptation. Other species take generations to recover from major military defeats. Humans transform their entire combat doctrine within months or even weeks. They don't just learn from their failures, they hunger for the lessons defeat can teach them. Martinez's final recording in the database chilled Vectora's core. You know what makes humans different? Other species evolve to survive. We evolved to adapt. Death isn't our enemy. Stagnation is. Every defeat is just another step in our evolution. So go ahead, show us your best tactics. Teach us your most devastating techniques. We'll learn. We'll adapt. And next time, we'll show you how much your lessons have taught us. Vectora sealed this section of her report with a warning. The most dangerous aspect of human military capability isn't their technology, numbers, or even their tactical prowess. It's their ability to transform defeat into evolution. Every victory against them makes them more dangerous. They don't just learn from history, they rewrite it with their enemy's blood. Vectora's sensory organs recoiled as she studied the footage from the defense of New Denver. The human capacity for weaponizing civilian infrastructure had already become legendary, but Master Sergeant Kyle MacGyver Thompson's actions during the siege defied comprehension. Sir, they've knocked out our primary weapons. The initial transmission from Thompson's squad crackled with static. Conventional defenses are down. Any other species would have surrendered. The collective's orbital bombardment had systematically destroyed every military installation in the region. Thompson's forces were trapped in a civilian sector with nothing but commercial infrastructure at their disposal. Perfect. Thompson's response caught the aliens completely off guard. Now we can get creative. Vectora watched in horror as Thompson's teams transformed the civilian sector into a death trap. They reprogrammed weather control systems to generate localized ice storms, freezing enemy advance units in their tracks. Shopping mall escalators became mobile gun platforms. Restaurant kitchens turned into explosive laboratories. Look at this, Vectora highlighted a sequence for her superiors. They converted a children's playground into a devastating anti-aircraft system. The rotating carousel provided the tracking mechanism, while the swing set's chains were repurposed for ammunition feed. The collective's ground forces found themselves facing weapons that shouldn't have existed. Thompson's troops had turned street-sweeping vehicles into mobile mine layers, their cleaning brushes now dispersing sophisticated explosive devices made from common cleaning supplies. They've weaponized the gardening section. A collective commander's panic transmission preceded the footage of precisely targeted chemical attacks. Fertilizer and pesticides combined into improvised but devastatingly effective weapons. Thompson's most brilliant innovation came when the collective tried to jam communications. Within hours, his team had converted the city's fiber optic network into a makeshift nervous system. They used underground power lines to transmit Morse code and repurposed traffic lights into a city-wide signaling system. The humans aren't just adapting existing technology, Vectora noted. They're reimagining the fundamental purpose of every object they encounter. In their hands, civilian infrastructure becomes more dangerous than military hardware. The security footage from a shopping center showed Thompson's ingenuity at its peak. His team had converted an entire department store into a layered defensive position. Mannequins concealed motion sensors. Perfume counters became chemical weapon dispensers. The ventilation system was reprogrammed to create artificial wind tunnels that disrupted enemy targeting systems. "Sir," one of Thompson's lieutenants asked, "is it legal to use a washing machine this way?" "Son," Thompson replied while finalizing the conversion of a laundromat into an automated heavy weapons platform, "everything's a weapon. You just have to be creative enough to see it." Vectora's analysis grew increasingly alarmed as she documented the patterns. Commercial cleaning supplies became advanced chemical weapons. Entertainment systems were converted into psychological warfare tools. Transportation infrastructure transformed into automated defense networks. Civilian communication equipment repurposed into military command and control systems. "Most disturbing," she wrote, "is their ability to combine seemingly harmless elements into sophisticated weapons platforms. They don't view objects based on their intended purpose, but rather on their potential for weaponization." The footage showed Thompson's forces systematically weaponizing every aspect of civilian life. They turned parking garages into tank traps, office buildings into fortress-like kill zones, and public parks into camouflage artillery positions. Even children's toys became components in their improvised defense systems. The human capacity for weaponization appears to be limited only by their imagination, Vectora concluded. They possess an almost supernatural ability to see the lethal potential in everyday objects. This makes standard military doctrine nearly useless against them. How do you fight an enemy that can turn any environment into a weapon? Thompson's final message to the retreating collective forces became a chilling testament to human adaptability. "Thanks for the practice. Next time we'll show you what we can do with the stuff you haven't seen yet." Vectora sealed this section with a personal observation. Most species develop dedicated military technology. Humans turned everything into military technology. In their hands, the difference between civilian and military infrastructure disappears. They don't just adapt to their environment, they weaponize it. The implications haunted her dreams. If humans could achieve such devastating results with simple civilian technology, what were they capable of with actual military hardware? Some questions, she decided, were better left unanswered. Vectora's appendages shook uncontrollably as she compiled the final section of her report. Dr. Elizabeth Storm Harrison's Human Enhancement Program wasn't just pushing the boundaries of evolution. It was redefining the very nature of human combat potential. Traditional evolution is too slow. Harrison's presentation to the World Military Council played on Vectora's display. "We've spent millennia adapting to overcome our limitations. Now we're going to eliminate them entirely." The footage from Harrison's classified research facility showed rows of experimental chambers, each one testing different aspects of human enhancement. Some focused on biological improvements, enhanced muscle density, reinforced skeletal structures, accelerated healing factors. Others pushed the boundaries of neural integration, allowing human minds to process information at unprecedented speeds. "Look at this sequence," Vectora highlighted for her superiors. "They're not just enhancing their natural capabilities, they're transcending them." Each breakthrough builds on all previous advancements in a geometric progression of power. Harrison's team had studied every human combat advantage, documented in Vectora's previous reports. The relentless endurance of Lieutenant Walker's wounded warriors, Colonel Reynolds' mastery of psychological warfare, Dr. Anderson's technological innovations, Major Blackwood's pack tactics. Commander Martinez's adaptive strategies, Surgeon Thompson's improvisational genius. We're not just combining these strengths, Harrison explained to a stunned audience. We're synthesizing them into something entirely new. Imagine soldiers with the endurance of Walker's team, but without the biological limitations. Picture tactical systems that merge Anderson's tech with Blackwood's pack instincts. The test footage made Vectora's primary heart skip a beat. Enhanced humans moved with impossible speed and precision, their augmented bodies channeling power that would tear normal flesh apart. Neural interfaces allowed them to share thoughts and tactical data instantly, combining the best aspects of individual creativity and hive-mind coordination. Most concerning, Vectora noted, is their approach to potential drawbacks. Where other species might see limitations, humans see opportunities for improvement. Each flaw becomes a target for enhancement, each weakness a pathway to greater strength. Harrison's program had already achieved results that violated what Vectora's people considered possible. Adaptive camouflage systems integrated directly with enhanced skin, reinforced organs with redundant backup systems, neural processors that allowed real-time tactical analysis, sensory enhancements that expanded human awareness beyond natural limits. But the real breakthrough, Harrison continued in the footage, isn't in the individual enhancements. It's in how we're integrating them with humanity's greatest strength, our adaptability. The demonstration that followed haunted Vectora's nightmares. Enhanced soldiers displayed not just improved physical capabilities, but accelerated evolution during combat. Their systems learned and adapted in real time, each engagement making them more efficient, more lethal. Traditional combat doctrine assumes relatively stable capabilities on both sides, Vectora wrote. Human enhancement technology invalidates this assumption. Their forces don't just fight. They evolve during the battle itself. Harrison's final presentation to the World Military Council outlined the program's future directions. Quantum neural networks for instantaneous tactical processing. Biomechanical enhancement systems that grow stronger with use. Adaptive defense mechanisms that evolve in response to damage. Combat AI integration that preserves human creativity while maximizing efficiency. We've spent our history adapting to overcome our limitations. Harrison's words echoed through Vectora's mind. Now we're approaching a point where our only limitation is our imagination. And trust me, we can imagine quite a lot. Vectora concluded her report with a warning she knew would shake the Galactic Security Council. The humans have weaponized their own evolution. Each advancement builds on all previous developments, creating a cycle of perpetual improvement that shows no sign of slowing. They're not just becoming stronger, they're becoming something entirely new. Her final note carried a tone of resignation. Most species reach a point where they consider themselves evolved enough. Humans see evolution itself as a weapon to be mastered. They don't just adapt to overcome challenges, they actively seek out new ways to transcend their current form. The question isn't whether they'll become the galaxy's dominant military power, but how much they'll have transformed themselves when they do. The footage ended with Harrison's team beginning work on projects even more ambitious than those documented. Vectora sealed the report with trembling appendages. Some possibilities were too terrifying to contemplate, even for a security analyst. The humans weren't just preparing for the future, they were engineering it, one enhancement at a time.